Hello! How have you guys been? It's been like, wow, like 2 whole weeks or so. That's like way ages for me. Sorry, I haven't caught up in a little while. I've been busy with stuff. So, what's been going on in Penny's life? Not too much has changed since we last spoke. I've still been going to TAFE and I've been doing really, really well too. Like, I've been topping all the assessments. I've been doing really, really awesome in everything, so that's like, it's a big confidence boost for me to be able to kind of look at something that I'm doing and going, wow, I'm actually doing it really well, I'm actually succeeding, so that's really cool. I also went to the movies last night and we went and saw The Expendables 2, which is actually really, really fun. I never actually saw the first one at all. Like, not that I really avoided it, but just that I never happened to see it. And I was always kind of interested in what it was about and like what the deal was with it. And it turns out that it's just a whole huge, absolute pure hit of testosterone, funny catchphrases and lots of explosions. And that's really awesome. So I really enjoyed watching it. It was really cool seeing these like epic, awesome, like testosterone men just kind of like, and quoting each other as well, like Arnold Schwarzenegger saying yippee-ki-yay to Bruce Willis is like, that's your line. That's, yeah, little things like that you just kind of like, you're sitting there enjoying the movie and then suddenly like a whole heap of the bad guys are suddenly shot down and there's explosions and they have no idea where it's coming from, and then around the corner, Chuck Norris. Of course it's Chuck Norris. It was awesome. And if you like, cheap thrills and lots of explosions and very, 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 very heavy testosterone doses, then go see it. It's awesome. It's very fun. And because I'm in a book club at the moment, I've actually been doing lots of reading lately, which has been really, really fun. And just in this last month, I've finished reading The Stand by Stephen King. I've also finished reading To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. And now I've just yesterday finished reading Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. So, and I haven't ever read Ray Bradbury before, so that was really cool to be able to finally experience his style of writing, because so many of my friends have been saying, you've got to read Ray Bradbury. And then I discovered the videos of Rachel Bloom, and I discovered Fuck Me Ray Bradbury, which is hilarious, and all the more hilarious once you actually get to know what the titles of some of his books are, especially after reading one of them. And now I plan on actually reading quite a few more of his books so I can actually become a little more versed in the writings of Ray Bradbury and hopefully get an all-new appreciation for Rachel Bloom's poetic musical awesomeness. So I've just discovered just then, like just literally just then, that Rachel Bloom was on an episode of How I Met Your Mother, and I love How I Met Your Mother, so that's really awesome. So it's an episode called The Drunk Train, and I haven't seen that one before, so I'm going to have to keep an eye out for when that might be on, or see if I can get a copy of it, because I would love to see her in How I Met Your Mother. That sounds really hilarious, because she's awesome and stuff. Anyway, as you probably guessed from the title, this is not a video that's catching up on my life. This is a video of something that I really want to talk about, and it's going to be quite long, as you can probably see from the time. So, let's get started. The main thing I really wanted to talk about today is my self and my religious history and my current status as an atheist. Now, I'm really sorry if this will be likely to offend you. If you feel uncomfortable about this, feel free to stop watching the video. I won't be offended at all if you don't watch it any further than this, but I'm going to be talking openly about how I am an atheist, and I get that this can sometimes be upsetting for some people who, consider their religion to be one of their dearest things. So I'm going to try not to be offensive, and I don't think I will be offensive, but, feel free to leave now if you like. I'll still love you. So I grew up Christian. I went to a mainstream Protestant church, and I had all the way through my infancy, childhood and teenage years. My father was never religious at all, and he was, quite open about that with us if we ever asked. But my mother took my sister and I to church every week and encouraged us to become very involved with the church, ministry with the church, fellowship with the church folk, etc., etc. And I never really questioned whether or not I wanted to be there or if I actually believed what was behind it. So in this way I ended up forming strong relationships with the people of the church. I formed my life around the church, really, without even questioning anything. And I never once asked myself in all seriousness if I actually believed any of the crap that I was singing about and praying about and speaking about and reading about. I played the part so well that I even had myself fooled, because I never once questioned that reality. So I should say now, on a side note, I'm a singer. I love singing, and I've pretty much been singing since I was walking. So whenever we would join a church, I would automatically be, as my voice matured, I started being adopted into the music team of churches. For those of you who don't know, that's the team of musicians that's like stands up the front of the church and basically leads the service. So there's generally a selection of musicians to make the band, and 3 or 4 singers, and generally one leader who's going to do the speaking of the service as well as leading the singing. So I was a part of that once my voice matured and I actually started singing really well. And each time we would move towns, I would change churches and join the music team for that new church. But the problem with being in a music team is that joining a music team means joining a roster. So you're then scheduled in so that you know which Sundays you're going to be on the music team, and also you'll know when you're needed for rehearsals during the week, and you have a responsibility to be at the church, and it means you have a commitment to the church. And that's a problem if I've just moved to a new town, to a new church, and immediately entered into the music team because they hear me singing during the first service I go to. I'm immediately committed to a church before I've even really decided whether or not I want to be there. I'm there, I'm done, and I'm on the roster, and everyone knows my name, and I'm scheduled in. And it's like, oh, they've got me already. There's no choice. So when I was 21 and I moved out of home for the first time, I moved to a new town, and I said to myself, I'm going to join a church, but I'm going to make the decision to make sure I do not join a roster. I do not join the music team. I do not make any commitments to this church. I will only be there as a church member, just turning up for the service. And then I will look at it and I will see if, without any responsibility or commitment to the church, if I still want to be there. If I have any real feeling that tells me that that's where I need to be. And it turns out that as soon as I was there without responsibility or duty to be there, I didn't really want to be there, and I realised that I didn't have faith in the things that the music team was singing about and the prayer that people were doing next to me in the pews, and I was sitting there going, I'm only here for the social element. I'm only here because there's people here. Don't get me wrong, joining a church is a great way to meet new people in the town. If you move into a new town, every time we've moved to a new town and I've joined a church, I've made friends like that because I've gone to a church, and the people in a church are very welcoming, and they're very interested in getting to know you and making sure that you feel welcome, because that's their duty as church members, so they'll do that straight away. So I was there going, yeah, this is great, I'll have friends, I'll be invited to social things, I'll meet new people, but the point of a church is in regards to your relationship with God. And I was sitting there going, I don't really believe that there is a God, which was weird for me because it was the first time I'd ever considered that in my entire life at 21 years old. Now, to my inner turmoil. So having your life so strongly based around religion and your whole being formed around the idea of being a Christian person and someone who goes to church weekly and someone who is involved with Christian fellowship, it's very difficult to suddenly change that. And I found myself floundering with who I was and what I wanted, because a huge portion of what I'd always known of myself was that I was a Christian. And now that was no longer the case. And I had friends through the church who were my age that I didn't want to lose, and I had adults who I'd always looked up to and who were like substitute parents from the church who'd always looked out for me and who had always been kind of guides for me in my life, and I didn't want to disappoint them, because I knew that me turning around and going, I don't go to church anymore, I don't believe what you've always taught me to believe, was going to be such a disappointment for them. And I still care about those people. They've helped to raise me, and I consider myself pretty successfully raised. I look at myself and going, yeah, I don't really have any big issues. I'm not a very conflicted individual. I don't suffer from my being. I'm very confident in my ability to live successfully as a person. So I see the people who raised me and I go, no, they're good people, and I don't want to disappoint them by saying that I don't go to church anymore. But I no longer state a belief in God, and that's a big part of who I am now. But because I didn't want to disappoint them, I never told them. So there's a lot of people who probably still believe I'm a regular churchgoer, and probably believe that I'm in a music team and leading fellowship and going to Bible study, but I don't, and I won't ever. And in a way I sort of shamed myself into silence, kind of trying to sneakily avoid that part of my life by kind of just going around my godless life without bringing up church in conversation. And there was a sort of guilt in it. And there was also a sort of guilt going along with it, in that my mother was always the one who brought my sister and I to church, and she was the one that always instilled that necessity for church going in us. And she died when I was 16, so I haven't had to answer to her for almost 10 years, and there is a very heavy sort of guilt in that, because she instilled that need to go to church in me, and she'll never know that I don't. What? I'm making my video. I was in the middle of speaking a paragraph and suddenly the Looney Tunes theme starts bursting through the room. I'm like, bastard. So over the next few years I really kind of struggled with my newfound atheism, and it actually took quite a bit of soul searching before I even realised that it was atheism, because I kind of still wanted to be connected with something otherworldly, because all my life I'd felt like there was this kind of spiritual significance to me, and I was connected to the other side, and it was all very deep, and there was protective spirits and God, and I could pray and be connected to some otherworldly spiritual being. But after a while I just realised you can't force a belief. A belief is not a choice. Belief is a state of mind, and it can't be altered without sufficient evidence or some great change in your worldview. Belief is not something that you just go, now I'm going to believe this. You can say that you believe it, but you can't just choose to just start believing something. It needs to be something very significant to be able to change your belief, or some great evidence that shows you a new fact, or a huge change around in your life that just makes you see the world all completely differently and change your core. And it would take a lot for me to do that. And it's only in the last year or two that I've really realised the amazing world of atheism, and that I shouldn't feel ashamed to be a part of it, that I should actually feel really proud to be a part of a society that's made up of some of the most brilliant minds ever to walk the earth. I have an amazing respect for most of the people that I'm about to list, such as Stephen Fry, Penn Jillette, George Carlin, Sir Ian McKellen, Douglas Adams, Billy Connolly, Katharine Hepburn, Hugh Laurie, Jack Nicholson, Dame Helen Mirren, who's gorgeous, and Virginia Woolf, all these people who have spoken out about their atheism. They make me feel like I'm not foolish for throwing away my religion, that I'm not some empty shell, that I'm in strong, intelligent company, and I'm in the company of people who respect science and evidence and proving what they believe in rather than believing blindly, which is, in contrast, really frightening and completely without benefit. This belief in something that you cannot prove, that you cannot you cannot touch, you cannot hold, you cannot see, you cannot prove that it is there, but you just want to believe. It's the kind of thing that other people would be put in nut asylums for. You throw people away if they're believing in things that are obviously not there. But then when it comes to a God, no, those are religious people. They're allowed to be considered completely sane. Sometimes even more sane than people who would say that you cannot believe in something that you cannot see. So now I find myself really, really comforted, and like my heart is very much warmed by the fact that so many people would speak out boldly about the sense behind atheism, the fact that it's okay, the fact that it's fantastic to be an atheist. And I spend hours on YouTube watching videos such as the Atheist Experience and Penpoint, SciShow, all the speeches by Stephen Fry and videos by people like Alex Day, who will very openly state that you can feel confident in yourself and even more motivated to learn and understand and become so confident in the reason behind atheism. And I hope that through knowing these things that someday perhaps I might be able to stand up to those people who I knew through the church, who I respect as authority figures, and explain to them why I'm so enamoured with science and so detached from religion, and am much more interested in evidence and proof than I am in issues of faith. Faith, while I'm sure it's very comforting for anyone who has it, is nothing more than a love for ignorance and a longing to know without any proof or evidence. Intentional ignorance is never bliss. It's only foolishness. So if you have any comments, feel free to post them, because I'm totally up for some conversation about this, because I'm so excited right now that I finally feel like I'm right. For one of the first times in my life, I feel like I am right, and I understand things that these ridiculously intelligent, very respectable, wonderful, amazing people also believe, that I am with them, and that's awesome. But if all you're going to bother to do is call me names and say that I'm destined for hell, well, go ahead, but you're not going to bother me, because, sweetie, I don't believe in it. It's a bit like what Josh Thomas, a young Australian comedian, said, that a Christian telling me that I'm going to burn in hell is like saying, like, some hippie is going to punch me in my aura. It's kind of redundant. I don't believe in it. It's not really a threat. That's all from me today. Hope I've entertained you and informed you a bit more about who I am and stuff. So, bye!